What is going on, everybody? In this video, we're giving a state of the market and stock picks for August 11th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead on this non-taco Wednesday. So with that being said, what are we doing in the market? What is the state of the market? We have core CPI. Today was a big day. And why so? Because we had core CPI, something we were waiting to come into today, and something I kind of, I was really thinking what could potentially happen in this next core CPI. The Fed had been talking about inflation is not coming down, and that what we're going to see is a lot higher inflation moving forward, and that the Fed are essentially they came in hawkish. In short. And so today in the core CPI, we got 8.5. I believe we were expecting 8.8, and last was 9.1. So this is good to an extent, but you have to realize, and something I talked about yesterday, inflation is just not going to run parabolic. It's going to have pullbacks. There'll be some cycles where it pulls back a little bit before the next leg. So where does that put us? That puts us at a point to where the next leg, you're going to have another report coming out in another month. Is it going to exceed essentially the 9.1? That's the next question. And then from there, we're going to have the Fed meeting at the end of next month. So with that all being lined up, what's going on here is that the Fed or the core CPI, I believe, even though it came in under estimates, you have to still understand that it is still very high. Just because it's come down doesn't mean we hit peak. We could sit there for a long time and it could still wreak havoc. Now, one thing that's nice is that as far as the rate raise is, I think, come down to people are guessing that the rates are going to come down to about 50 basis points, which could happen, which is still not good. Again, any continued more, especially after two historic 75-point basis moves, to continue to raise rates is not a good thing. It's already getting bad. Microsoft came out with another article today. They're laying off more people. After the bell today. So there's still underlying thesis that's going on here that's still occurring behind the doors, even though inflation looks like it's coming down. There's some inflation came down in some areas and some it hiked up. So there's a rotation, and you have to understand that there's demand destruction is what we're seeing, and so people are fearful to be purchasing a lot of different things. This is why you're potentially seeing a big drop in oil, because people just aren't going to drive cars everywhere if gas is sitting plus $5 a gallon. People just aren't going to spend that. People are spending a lot of time potentially working 2 to 3 different jobs. So again, in time, everything will unravel. Market is different. The stock market is different from the economy. Yes, the stock market is driven off of news, obviously, but and once it does attempt to price it in, but once it hits that level, it thinks it prices it in, it starts going back up, right? And so you have to understand, just because it priced it in doesn't mean the market's not going to adjust to it. So with that being said, we are breaking, technical wise, we are breaking this level here, something I was talking about yesterday, this 4185. Which is good, all right? The market's got some room to start heading back up. Now we're looking at the 42, essentially a 4280 is what we're looking at now. Now we'll have to see if we get rejected there. But now we're pretty much in the clear. As long as we can hold above this, essentially this 4189 tomorrow, I think we might get a little bit of a pullback to do a retest. For the daily, as long as you can hold above that and it doesn't gap back down below this tonight, I think we could be in the clear and start making some progress back up. Now we got pretty much a clear runway into at least the next core CPI. That's to say that some other left field stuff can come out and drop the market, which is always possible even in a bullish market. So just be mindful of that. But right now, things are looking good, and we could potentially get into some sort of bull run a pretty strong bull run here. People may think we peaked. Again, I think there's some people are a little bit more cautious today because we didn't run straight out the gate. Now that may differ overnight. Overnight we might gap up, and then that will just release the bulls, and we'll go streaking up to this the 4,300, and then from that point. Again, we'll probably do a little pullback and consolidation and retest this level here, and then potentially break out even bigger from there. My current sentiment right now is for the next 4 weeks, well, not 4 weeks in general, but next month, I think we are very bullish unless some new news drops to prove otherwise. You're seeing layoffs and everything like that. It's not affecting the market. Again, the market has been held down, so it is trying to get a rally in, because if that next report is bad, which we came out with a report, and then you have tons of headlines saying it's not really good, it's still going to be high, inflation is still going to be high, inflation's still not going anywhere. So those are things you have to keep in mind. So nonetheless, play technicals right now. As far as events, I think we're pretty wide open and good, like I said, for the next 3 to 4 weeks, aside from any potential news drops that come on a daily. So again, we're looking good. Again, we could potentially even float around this 50, 25 basis points. So your 25 basis points we have marked roughly around that 4,300, which I think is where we're probably headed. And then we'll pull back. And then again, that 50-point basis move is sitting roughly around that 40.87 or 40.86, essentially where we just escaped from. So I think the market may chop around here for a little while, at least going, because we have a massive run. You have to understand, we did have any kind of earnings runs. We're getting a nice earnings run here. We're going to stop at some point here and start chopping and start selling off a little bit. It'd be a normal pullback, again, unless some new news comes out, and then new news could potentially start pushing us back down. But we have to see. Again, we've had multiple times where we've had some big runs and then started dropping and then getting massive drops. So that's one thing we want to be careful and mindful for to this point. So again, we broke and came exactly straight back up. So again, when you start getting hopium in a market that's been beaten down all year, it's going to get pretty parabolic. Now, again, I'm watching that key level and see what happens there and seeing if it breaks that. If not, it could get rejected and chop some more. I expect a lot more chop, to be honest, moving forward. Bitcoin, we'll start looking at this a little bit more. Again, we need to break essentially the 25K mark. If we can break above that on a daily, again, you got a really tough resistance here at the 28. So all this really strong support that was once strong support is now resistance. So we got to watch out for those levels at the 28 or roughly around the 30K mark, and then potentially start making our descent back up again. I think to make the rest of the year finish off strong, what we're going to need is the next CPI to be lower than it is now. If it's lower than it is now, then that could very well determine that we have reached peak inflation and that the Fed is getting some control over it. And then it will go into, well, how much is the Fed really going to come at? Maybe they may not come in at nothing. And that would, I think, make the market absolutely parabolic at that point. Our 25-point basis move, I think the market would take that bullish, or even 50-point basis move. Essentially, at this point, as long as we're staying away from that 75 and that 100-point basis move, again, we continue to reside around that 75 to 100 points. Even 50, in my mind, anything 50 and above is, I think, bad. Even 25 right now is bad in my mind, just because things are already getting really high. If they continue to push it, you only got so many more Fed meetings before the end of the year. They may push it and they may hike it. Again, if it pops back over 9.1 in the next, you're talking like a 100-point basis move in that next meeting. So there's a lot that can still happen, but right now, windows open for the next 2 to 3 weeks, in my opinion. So we're going to see where we can go from this point. But Bitcoin, I think, could potentially run back up to some extent. I don't think it's going back to all-time highs. I think it's still too much. We still need that other report. We need to know if inflation's coming down. If it's not, or maybe some other data comes out that's proving something that's the thesis that we've been talking about this whole time. Oil is still roughly around 91. That's holding 91. Again, I don't think oil could make another push up. Again, everything going on. You have to understand it's because things are good in the U.S. Things are still really bad around the world, like extremely bad. Right? The U.S. dollar did take a bit of a dip today, but it's still very strong, and you have to be mindful of that. So that's kind of what we're looking forward, moving forward. So Tesla had a nice bounce off the 20 weekly, and see if this thing can extend back up. We want to see if it can retest the 932. Now there's been a lot of news that came out today. Essentially, Elon's selling more stock in case he has to buy Twitter, which I think he's trying to move more liquidity out because of what could potentially be happening down the road, aka a recession, a darker recession than everybody's trying to make this out not to be, or which I think he is, because he's also sold Bitcoin and he said he would buy back in, but he's not buying it now. So my opinion is I think he's waiting for everything to come down, then we'll buy back in. So watching Tesla here for essentially that 931 top. If we can break that, I think we can get a nice rip out of there, back up to the 1K at least. If not, could be heading back down here and floating around. I may just chop around here. It's kind of what Tesla does after it has a nice run for earnings. It finds a bottom and it just kind of bases. I want to actually be surprised if it floats between this 820 and this 874, roughly around here, until the next potential earnings cycle or bad news event that sends it down, or good news that might send it up a little bit briefly. But it moves a lot like this, so it consolidates a lot and going and waiting for the next cycle. Let's see. Shop could be interesting. Really watching this level tomorrow. Essentially that 43 mark. Over and above that, we got the 48 mark, and then if we can break that out of that, I think Shop can really do some damage as well moving forward. I think Disney is one I want to watch. They did really well on earnings tomorrow. I play Disney every now and again, but they've done really, really well. You definitely have to watch the 126 here. It'll drop down lower time frame here. So you essentially got that cap at 126. You really want to watch that tomorrow. If we open flat here, you want this to stay above the 120. 120.50. If that hourly candle can open above that, I think you get a nice runway up to that bar before it gets rejected. If not, you definitely don't want it breaking bad down below this 118. If the hourly candle opens below this, you definitely don't want it. So you want it to either break above or below. If it's going to sit in here, just wait for it to break out on one side or the other, and then essentially take it from that point. So I really want to watch Disney going into tomorrow. Let's look at BA again, trying to gauge value here. Again, a lot of chop, not really much going on there. Value's been kind of mixed message. Airbnb, same thing. But if it can break the 120, we may go parabolic. If we start going parabolic, value might be a good one to get. Again, if it can break again above this 120 mark, hourly candle, same thing. I think value can really rip tomorrow. So I'll probably be watching Airbnb tomorrow as well. Let's take a look at the banks. Banks are finally starting to break out. If this thing can really start getting moving, I think we could get some nice plays on the banks. I'm not a bank person, so we definitely need this to hold above the 119 mark. We need that candle to break above there, and then potentially get a gap fill here, right? If the banks really start getting some gas, you could get a nice gap fill here up here. Again, we got to break, we'll say 120. If this thing can open up above 120 tomorrow, I think we can get a nice gap fill moving forward. So, but that's pretty much what I got. I don't really got too much else going into tomorrow. I think we want to kind of see if we can break that level. I'm watching SPX primarily, kind of gauging that, and then playing Disney. And then for the rest of it, I have to really see in the morning, kind of see where the markets are at. GME and AMC have been pumping, but they've still been working pretty heavy. I mean, the market's still undecided because it doesn't really know, but I think I think we might get a breakout either tomorrow or Friday to the upside, and then still really start running. So we have to see again how everything is interpreted. Again, we had that quick move, and then we kind of just stalled it for the rest of the day. So again, it always comes back down to where we land in the morning, and then take it from that point. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Go ahead and drop a like button. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.